So if you imagine next 5 to 10 years, how do you see Milwork evolving with new tools, technologies, and global collaboration? So that's the future. How do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, there's going to be some changes for sure.
So next question is about the future of Milwork. So if you imagine next 5 to 10 years, how do you see Milwork evolving with new tools, technologies, and global collaboration? So that's the future. How do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, there's going to be some changes for sure. There's more and more 3D capability being added to Millwork. We're Millworkers in general have not been part of the whole BIM revolution when it comes to building model management, as much as I think we could be. But we're also, at the same time, we understand that because we're between the drywall, like we said, like to say, between the paint, right, or inside the paint, we don't necessarily interact with a lot of the HVAC, the plumbing, the different things that BIM handles. But when we do, and it would be good to have BIM access to BIM models, and so I could see the industry actually starting to embrace that a little bit more, and to make sure that more complex projects, because really that's when it's really necessary, actually align with the architects, the drawings,
and coordinate with others thing.
Any information. A lot of times, I mean, even simple things like coring the floor. In a lot of the newer buildings, you've got the pre-stressed slabs, where they have to know exactly where that core is going to go, so that they can plan for it in the laying of the actual pre-stressed material inside the pre-stressed rebar inside the concrete floor, because you can't penetrate the floor except for in certain areas, because if you cut one of those cables, well, then you lose the integrity of the floor. So things like that, things like making sure that when we have to penetrate the ceiling, we're actually accounting for HVAC. A lot of that stuff coordination has been helping with, but we still find, in my mind, I think we still find where just plain coordination is still difficult to get some of the on-site teams to understand what it is that we're actually going to be doing and what we're going to be needing. And honestly, if we had the other thing that would be beneficial, I think, is in-wall strapping, for support for our millwork, and being able to plan that out in a BIM model to show where that goes, or at least make sure that the architect understands where it is, or the architect and contractor understand where it's supposed to be, based on, and making sure that it all lines up with our millwork. But one of the biggest things I think that we've found at Crestmark that we're really starting to embrace and learning how to properly use is 3D scanning. Okay. So we've incorporated a 3D scanner, a LiDAR scanner, into our field measurement toolkits, shall we say. And so I think we're one of the very few shops that are actually doing this at this point. Okay. So we take a 3D scanner down to the job site for larger rooms, some of the more complex spaces, and scan it to get an actual 3D representation of the room. That's actually, with the new scanners, it's accurate to within an eighth with the scanner that we have now. I think some of the newer scanners are even more accurate than that, because ours is a few years old at this point, because we bought an older model. Just because we weren't sure if it was going to be something we wanted to do, that was going to work. And they're expensive. It's a big expense, but I think many millworkers will find that it's actually worthwhile to have that 3D model, because you can take that point cloud that you've created from the LiDAR scan and actually drop it into your CAD program and create a model out of it. So then you have an actual model of the room, as accurate as you can get it, and honestly, with scribing and things of that nature that we actually that we put into our millwork anyways, it should be accurate enough for you to be able to more consistently create product that fits the space, right? So one of the things we had found in the last few years was that a lot of times it will minimize parts, material waste, material waste, things of that nature. Because if you make a mistake, then you have to remake it. It takes a lot of extra time. You wind up with parts that go down to the field and they're not quite right. that actually is very costly. So I think, as we've embraced it and started to learn really how to use it, learning what its capabilities are, and how to increase the accuracy as much as possible in the building spaces that we're in, we're seeing a lot more benefit from it. Now we're not relying completely on LiDAR scanning for our field measurements, and I think that would probably not be worthwhile because it's not necessarily worth the time to scan a simple run of casework, for instance. Although there are benefits to that as well, because we also, everybody, every time, and I'm sure all shops go through this, you have somebody taking field measurements, whether it be a project manager or a field manager or something along those lines that goes out and actually takes field measurements. You forget something. Okay, you don't catch a measurement that you need, and when you have a 3D scan of it, well, you can go back and catch that measurement, right? So and most of those measurements are things that don't need to be super accurate too, like plumbing locations or bracket locations, things of that nature that you could be off by a quarter inch, half inch, and you'd be fine. But you have that backup. So if something doesn't get caught by the field measurer, you still have it. So, but I do think 3D scanning is going to be
kind of a future.
something that I think more shops will embrace in the future.